Okay, at this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we will have invocation by Reverend Steve from the First Baptist Church.
Father in heaven, we just come before you, thanking you for your goodness and your grace. Lord, we again thank you for all these that serve. And Lord, I especially want to pray for our military and those who have given their lives for this nation. Lord, I want to pray for our first responders and all those, Lord, all these tourists. We need safety in this town and on the water. And Lord, we need people that can work there and help. And Lord, I just pray for them this summer. Lord, it's going to be a lot of people here. And so, Lord, we ask for your blessings and your guidance in all that we do. Lord, again, we want to thank you for this day, for this city, and for all those people that lives in it to make it possible. And we thank you most of all for your Son. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Ms. Abear, if you lead us in the praise.
Please join me with your hand over your heart. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, we need the agenda approval.
Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, I'd like to add under my name a membership appointment for the Public Works and Safety Committee.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Mr.
Mayor, I need to add an appointment as well under my name for LPA.
All right. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move livery topics up to after public comment.
Second.
All right. Any discussion of that motion?
Well, and I'd like to add update on the pickleball courts under my name.
Updates. And I thought it was going to be a simple night.
Messed you up, didn't they, Dewey?
Yep. Okay, with no discussion, we will move forward with the vote on the agenda. Mr. Stevens? We're going to voice vote.
Yes?
Tory?
Yes.
Mr. Bagby?
Yes.
Ms. Abear?
Yes.
I vote yes.
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 Okay, that one passes unanimously. And at this time, we will do a proclamation. Thank you, sir. At this time, we are going to be proclamating National Public Works Week, advancing quality of life for all. Whereas public work professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people the city of Destin has. And whereas these services, facilities, and infrastructure could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are responsible for building, improving, and protecting our city's transportation, public buildings, and natural resources essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Destin to gain knowledge and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their community. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association, now therefore, I, Mayor Pro Tem Dewey Destin, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through 25, 2024 as Public Works Week. In the city of Destin, I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Workers Association and government agencies in paying tribute to our public works professionals, recognizing the substantial contributions they make to protecting our health, safety, and quality of life here in Destin. And witness, therefore, I have hereto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed to this meeting of the City Council of the City of Destin, and it is signed by our Mayor, Bobby Wagner. And I just wanted to say, without public works, the city doesn't hardly exist, does it? We're just very indebted to all of you guys that make everything in the city work. And, you know, you have our our great thanks and gratitude for all the things you do. Without the Schroeds and the buildings and all the things that you take care of, we'd be in sad shape. Okay, I believe the agenda change was to move the library ahead of public comment? No. After, okay. At this time, then, we will take public comments. I forgot Dolphin Point. How could I do that? Okay, we have some representatives from Dolphin Point that would like to make a presentation. Okay.
All right.
My name's James Dexter. I'm a homeowner of Point South Townhomes.
And I'm Janice Nicole Moran. Jim and I have been seeing each other 2 years Monday. Happy anniversary. And, when we first started dating, I could park my car there overnight. That changed. Okay. So, the reason I'm here today and requested to speak was because at the May 6th City Council meeting, I was really disturbed by the way things were presented by, I'm going to call them our opposition, which is Dolphin Point. Since that time, in just 2 short weeks, I found some history I think will interest everyone, considering that you were a witness to the April 15th meeting, which we feel was intentionally snuck in under the radar. And I have some things I can present. And oddly enough, that correlates to kind of the same thing that went down in 2010, which I also have evidence of. Or let me say, questions about. Because I'm not here today to point any fingers at anybody, certainly on the city council or on the city staff. But I do want to draw some attention to some of the comments and hoop jumping for the grand plan of Dolphin Point. Because after I've learned more, there's more to talk about. So I'm going to start with the Exhibit 3A that I submitted to you in my speaker forum presentation packet. And that is where the loop went. I think you remember we discussed, I got to make this fast, there's so much. So please, give us a chance, if not tonight, to fully address everything on my bullet points. But I call this my lethal bullet point because the loop, 14 years ago, according to Exhibit 3A, let me get to that. And this agenda is from July 1st, 2010. The subject, review and recommendation of right-of-way vacation request, and it's 10-1, I think that's the ordinance number, which is a request to vacate a portion of the northernmost 74.4-foot long section of the public right-of-way. That's the loop. And they're going to vacate it to Dolphin Point back in 2010. It's all right here. And then if you move a little further along, you'll see that part of the improvements proposed by Dolphin Point HOA will bring the southerly 9 parking spaces into compliance with the LDC 14 years ago. I don't know why that wasn't done, and we'd like to kind of examine that and better understand what happened. Then Ms. Betty Norton, the owner's agent for Dolphin Point, requested vacating it. And they also went as far to say that they vacated a portion of, that we should vacate a portion of the right-of-way to install a security gate for the protection of the owners and their property. That was 14 years ago in 2010. All right. Also, they had to meet certain criteria, which comes under question today. like the road does not provide sole access to any property, which I think it does, but I'm not a road development engineer or anything, but, you know. It also says the proposed vacation is not detrimental to the public interest. We went from a loop to a 3-point turn. I don't know about anybody else, but if kids are running around, I'd rather be moving forward than backing up with blind spots. It's just been a gross misrepresentation by Dolphin Point, to speak quite honestly. And I don't feel comfortable making accusations, so I'm just saying we're here to make inquiries. I don't know what happened, but we'll go on to say that, you know, the reason I felt like this went under the radar, even back then, the homeowner association president, maybe one reason they don't have a fence is because she was terminated. In your notes, it says that she was found to be misrepresenting Dolphin Point, her own cheering section. We're angry because I don't think they intended to pay for a fence, but all I know is she didn't, according to the people in the notes here, and you have a copy of this, but I can also make available the agenda from, I just have it all here. So I'd love to share it with anybody. I understand she was up here for, I think she said 2 years, every other day working with everybody. Well, in 2 weeks, I found that it doesn't look like they lived up to the end of their bargain last time. Why are we negotiating with them again? So here's our ask, because quite frankly, you know, I'm not a finger pointer, but I do hold people accountable, and I seek justice and truth. And I'm thinking y'all might have got played. Forgive me for saying it like that, but here we go. Let me just validate what I'm saying here with a few more things. In that ordinance, you know, they look back in 2010, they posted the wrong public hearing notice date. Let me show you that. So they were always moving it around. And they said, well, you know, we sent out mail and we put an ad, newspaper ad, but for whatever reason, and it has the dates, they were wrong for the public hearing. But they decided to move forward anyway because the other 2 dates in the newspaper, you know, people who aren't involved. I don't know about you, but if I read something in the newspaper that don't involve me, yeah, a lot of news out there. But if you would have hung that public notice with the right date back in 2010, more people might have showed up back then. Come on. So forgive me. But I've lost a lot of sleep this week. I think we all should have maybe a mandatory spa day for city council people and workers. And, you know, just can we pump the brakes, please? And can we just better understand what the heck happened? Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, and your presentation raises a lot of interesting questions. I believe this issue will be on a June the 3rd meeting, so you'll have another opportunity to talk.
Right now, we're just trying to give information. Hopefully, everybody will take consideration, look at the history, try not to repeat processes. There's use for everything. Understand you guys are the experts, and for sure you guys are more than capable of making the decisions for the greater good, and we appreciate you taking the time to get
Can I add one thing? Or am I already gone because I walked away? Because we have an ask. So if anybody wants to know what it is we want done at this point, we have something prepared.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any other comments from the public today?
Mike Abity, 530 Harbor Boulevard. I'm here to speak on the livery vessel ordinance that y'all going to be considering. And basically, I've been in the livery vessel business for 34 years. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, they don't have a classification for livery vessels. Their classification for livery vessels is bareboat charters. Okay? So actually, I've been in the bareboat charter business as far as the Coast Guard is concerned for the last 34 years. So I kind of know a little bit about bareboat charters. We've had a moratorium on livery vessels by the city of Destin over the last several years, in which all the legal operators have lived by. And now a group is coming and asking for some special consideration. My suggestion to the council is there's 3 legal ways to operate a business in Destin. 2 of them are under the purview of the U.S. Coast Guard. that's charter for hire. An uninspected vessel which can carry 6 passengers, and an inspected vessel which can carry as many passengers as the Coast Guard designates. The third option is livery vessels designated by the city or bareboat charters as designated by the U.S. Coast Guard. They have strict rules and regulations of how those boats can operate. We understand those, and we operate under the City of Destin livery vessel licensing, which has strict rules and regulations, which we've been following for the last several years since y'all designated the livery vessel license. So we've been under moratorium. We think the moratorium should stand. Anyone who wants to operate a business, I'm not against business, I'm pro-business. I think everybody should have opportunity to operate their business. They have 3 options for anybody who wants to operate a commercial vessel in Destin. One of them is 2 of them under the purview of the Coast Guard. One is the 6-pack charters, which they can get tomorrow and be in business. One is get your vessel inspected and operate it as an inspected vessel, which you can carry as many passengers as the Coast Guard designates. And the third option is to purchase a currently existing livery vessel. We call them medallions. The city calls them a registration, a livery registration. There are several available for sale in this area. I happen to know 2 or 3 people that have some for sale. If anybody wants to purchase one, they can call me, they can contact me. They can get my number from the city staff. I'll be happy to put them in touch with people who have these for sale. Okay, I don't know the prices of them. I'm not the owner of them, so I'm not going to be in a negotiation for the sale. But I think that's a good, viable way for these people, if they want to run a bareboat charter, purchase a livery vessel license legal with the city of Destin. Final note, if the city of Destin is going to make some changes to their livery vessel ordinance, I caution the council to be very careful in the verbiage and the wording of this thing, as it does be certain that it doesn't conflict with the U.S. Coast Guard rules and regulations. I realize the city of Destin can do whatever they want. You have the authority to make your own rules and regulations, but it would be nice if there's no conflict between city of Destin, state of Florida, U.S. Coast Guard, if their rules and regulations coincided. Thank you.
The livery vessel issue is the very next thing on the agenda.
Council, Mr. Dewey.
Mr. Green?
Acting mayor or Mayor Pro Tem. My name's Captain Jim Green. I'm the president of the Destin Charter Boat Association. We represent 80 small businesses in the Destin area and over 90 vessels. And we're here to talk to you about the livery vessel designation. As you know, the harbor has had an influx, and we have done a lot of work to rein in a lot of the rental vessel issues. We were getting overrun in the harbor by rental vessels. That was a very painstaking, tough process. We had livery businesses, we had stakeholders, and we had city leadership that worked real hard to rein that in and try to find a fair balance within our small commercial area that we work in the working waterfront of the Destin Harbor. On May 6th, you heard some testimony. There was a talk about an exemption, certain things like that. Just so you know, the U.S. Coast Guard has a task force right now that's operating to try to rein in illegal charters. By me saying that, I'm not accusing any of our bareboat operators in Destin of operating illegally or indicting them, but that task force was created in part because of the bareboat charter industry. And with online booking services and an explosion in the use of bareboat charters in the last handful of years, it is, I believe that is why the state redesignated them as livery operators, because before they specifically excluded bareboat charters. And as part of the process of creating the livery ordinance and the moratorium, I think that it goes against the past and current council actions and your advisory committee recommendations to move forward with an exemption. The DCBA feels that We should operate within the livery ordinance as it is. It has been known that that there is some attrition in that industry and that those medallions, for lack of a better word, are available. And we feel that that should be the path forward. And, you know, there's a lot of effort that goes into running a vessel that can carry more than 6 people. Most production and custom-built vessels nowadays do not meet that rigorous standard. When you build a vessel that's made to carry over 6 passengers for hire, your blueprints have to be approved. The Coast Guard is at no less 20 times at the building site of that vessel. The vessel arrangement, firefighting, safety equipment, vessel recovery systems such as bilge suction systems that are separate from your normal bilge pumps. It's a very stringent standard, and it's very tough, and it's there so that when people charter a boat and they see that COI, they know that their well-being and all the safety features that are required of them have been inspected and are in compliance. And right now, the bareboat charter operation runs in kind of a gray area. It allows them to carry more than 6, but negates them from having to adhere to that rigorous standard. And you're going to hear some charter captains testify to that, and it's a bit of a gray area, and allowing any exemption and not kind of staying within the moratorium and all the hard work by all the people in this town that have worked hard to find a fair and balanced way of operating on our limited commercial waterfront, it would be disingenuous to them. So thank you for the opportunity to testify, and
Now, do we have anybody that wants to talk about something that's not the livery? No.
This is public comment.
It is.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with livery as much as I want to talk about it, but it's not. Greg Fisher, 1242 Emerald Bay Drive. I just want to thank the council for their generous donation to the waterways and safety videos that we are going to be producing. I believe it's going to start here real soon. So this is the 3rd video of a 3-video series that basically just discusses safety in our waterways, specific to pontoon boats. We did one for jet skis and one for just the general waterways in Crab Island. This is the 3rd one. Those videos have garnered around 45,000 views on YouTube, but they've been shared, hundreds, if not thousands of times. So I think we're doing a lot of good things there. I see more water sport operators actually posting the videos on their pages and sharing them. So really excited about this 3rd video. I think we'll finish up the production early summer, and maybe by July or August we'll have it live. So we just want to appreciate that consideration. Thank you.
Carrie Zingaretti, Spring Lane. So to give a quick little history, in 1992, my business was grandfathered in here in Destin. I'm a mobile vendor. I use the right-of-way. And I entered into an agreement with the city, and I've held strong on my agreement for 18 years. There's a whole lot of stuff involved in it, if for some people that don't know, and I have given our city attorney a copy of that grandfather status. So in the meantime, here we are facing Memorial Weekend, and you're going to see in the food truck industry, this is why I probably saw it 20 years ago, a lot of trucks here, a lot of ice cream trucks. They're from Panama City, but more importantly, I'm not quite understanding why people that live in Destin and operate out of Destin are held to the fire. But if you come from another town, you can come do business, wrap it up, and go back home. We should never really want that practice. I kind of don't understand it, and more importantly, I'm not quite sure that we shouldn't know who's soliciting the children of the community. It's kind of important. So right now, I think what I'm looking at is code compliance apparently has a small problem because they really don't have anything to put their teeth into. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to quote anybody. My understanding is they don't have teeth to back anything that's not there. So there was there before we redid the comp plan in 2019. I said in the meetings, I gave the final end-all be-all to the Miss Cop, So what I'm getting at is now we're flooded with a lot of illegal businesses, and I'm hoping maybe this council can help give some authority to our code compliance. It's not right for people. Y'all, I invest in this community. I bought land on Mountain Drive to warehouse here. We invest, people that live here and pay to play, we invest in the community. People that come from Panama City to work the beaches and go back home, we shouldn't allow that, but I don't know how we'll get a grasp on it. So, questions? Any questions? Okay.
Thank you for your comments. We'll look into it.
Thank you.
This is about Livery. I know that you're trying to stop it. So. And I'm not very good at public speaking, so I'm going to read what I have here. Clifford Atwell, Destin, Florida. So I want to thank you for your time and allowing for public input. I understand the new change in the bareboat and demise charters to livery vessels by the state of Florida has prompted the city to cease issuance of business tax receipts to bareboat charters in Destin. The current livery medallion system in place regulates the unlimited growth of rental boats. I believe this system in place works well as designed and prevents unregulated growth. To allow the exemption of bareboat charters only encourages this type of unregulated, unlimited growth of rental boats, as those boats who are currently limited to 6 passengers and uninspected by the Coast Guard will find a way to run their boats with more than 6 passengers as an uninspected bareboat charter. Per U.S. Coast Guard, any boat carrying 6 passengers or fewer is not regulated by a certificate of inspection. This means no blueprints have been submitted to Washington for approval, no wiring or piping schematics provided, no crash bulkhead, no engineered fire suppression system in place, no annual topside inspections, no hull inspection, no quarterly training of the captains or crews. I could go on the stuff that's missing. Currently, a local Coast Guard contractor is providing a similar inspection service as a courtesy to these boats who carry 6 passengers and fewer. And these are the inspections that these bareboat charters are getting, not COI inspections. They're courtesy inspections. However, these boats, when chartered as a bareboat vessel, are carrying more than 6 passengers, which means they should fall under the U.S. Coast Guard regulations requiring a certificate of inspection. By requiring all bareboat charters to comply with the livery ordinance, these boats, whether self-captained or captained by a third party, would then be regulated by the city and code compliance. City and code enforcement should be properly trained to understand and enforce the contracts that the charter party and the boat owners have as well. Furthermore, the City of Destin issues business tax receipts according to the parking limitations. If these boats are issued a BTR for carrying over 6 passengers, they should not be required to operate as they should now be required to operate as an inspected vessel by the Coast Guard regulations. The livery medallion system currently regulates rental vessels, ensuring that parking limitations are limited per medallion issued. To allow a boat which carries over 6 passengers to operate as a bareboat charter instead of operating as a livery vessel lowers the standards for all vessels and provides an exception to the rule. By granting these exemptions time and time again, the city opens itself up for more parking issues, more congestion in Destin Harbor, and no governing entity for the livery boats. I ask you this evening to maintain the current BTR and livery system that has already been established as a standard of procedure for uninspected rental vessels and regulates the growth of rented charter boats. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name's Matt Condon. I reside at 99 Cayman Cove, and my comments are made related to livery vessels. Livery is a strange word. It means rental, so I'd like to call it rental vessels, just to clarify. I own and operate Destin Private Yachts, which manages bareboat charters. We refer to them as private yacht charters. I also own and operate Destin Private Tiki, which is an inspected vessel, and I also own and operate a uninspected vessel. So I have a foot in all 3 camps. And I think Mike, Jim, and Cliff all made some very good points. But I do want to point out that for someone who's relatively new in business, such as myself, we had to ask and make a business decision, do we go into this business? Are we legal and able to operate as a bareboat charter in Destin? And the answer we were given by the manager at that time, city manager, was if your bareboat charter is 100% operated by a captain, you're not subject to our livery regulation. So we went forward, bought boats, my customers bought boats, which I manage, and so what's happening is administration has made a change to apply this, no longer apply that standard, excuse me, of captain operated as to whether it does or does not qualify under the livery rule. So it's a recent change that has at least 10 boats that I could think of who have been operating with existing BTRs as a bareboat charter, captained only. They've been granted BTRs, and now moving forward with the change, they're proposed not to be granted the BTR, which would put Destin in a unique situation as being the only city in the state of Florida that prohibits private yacht charters. And private yacht charters have been a real boon to the community. It's allowed people who are privately own these boats to put them out for charter, guests hire professional captains, and I don't see any negative other than medallion holders who feel that they have an intrinsic value in that medallion and want to see it sold. By the way, somebody might, that's probably the wrong time to ask a question, but does it not specifically say that it can't be sold? Medallions can be sold? Does the law not say this medallion cannot be transferred?
We allow them to be transferred.
Okay, so that's an administrative, okay. Had we known that, maybe we would have bought a thing, but we made a...
Did you say that again? I'm sorry.
We have allowed them to be transferred. You all recently approved an agreement for someone to hold her medallions, their registrations, and make them sellable, so we do allow them to be transferred. We just do not allow new medallions to anyone that was not in business at the time that the moratorium started.
Okay, and I apologize. Give him his 24 seconds back. What I thought we allowed her was she was going to have them down for a year because if they weren't used, they expired. And so what we allowed her in that one instance, because she came and made a point to this council, was I can't use them this year, and I can't even remember why she couldn't use them. Can I extend them, okay, so that I could have them?
That was that specific case, but we have allowed them to be transferred. As long as it doesn't change the number of vessels that are registered overall in the city, we have allowed them to transfer between.
Okay, and who owns those registrations? Because this is the point. Does the city own the registration, or does the person who applied for it last year own it for this year?
I think the person that is registered with the city owns it and can sell it, but that's the way we've handled it.
Yeah, I think y'all made a decision, and we probably need to review that as a council.
That's perfectly fine. We can do that. We can do that now or anytime.
Okay, sorry. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Kim. So, again, you know, I really, because I'm in all three camps, I don't want to say this is the right way, that's the wrong way. I can only tell you that private yacht charters is here to stay worldwide, nationwide, Florida-wide. It benefits a lot of people, and so I would rather figure out a way to navigate through this than say, we're right, you're wrong. I would point out to the fishing community that a private yacht charter is typically registered recreational and cannot get a fishing license unless they are operating a commercial vessel. So we don't compete directly with the fishermen.
Let me ask you this. If you're taking a crew of people and they all have their own fishing license, can you take them fishing?
As a private boat, yes. But as a practical matter, if you look, and
See,
again,
you see why I asked that
I do, there's a little wiggle room there, yes. But, you know, does it happen? I don't see it. Yeah, perhaps. But again, my point is, it's not a direct competition. private yacht charters they're in the tour business, but they're different.
Yeah, that is your 21 seconds.
Yes,
I
sir.
do have a question.
Okay.
You have multiple yachts?
Yes, sir. Well,
How many?
tour boats.
Yeah. Okay, how many do you manage in the
So-
city of limits
so-
of Destin?
On the private yachts,
Yes.
4.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jimmy Perkins, 3890 Sandprint. 3 years ago, had legal six-pack pontoon charter right across from Crab Island, the ultimate spot. Could not keep up with the Joneses because everybody and their brother in Destin was bareboating out of the harbor, Joe's Bayou, everywhere. I was on you guys left and right to enforce. So the only way that I could keep going was move to Fort Walton with my boats so that I could bareboat. Because at the time, Ms. Kopp over here said, absolutely not. You can only do six-packs. Even with the six-pack license, I got shut down on the 4th of July because
Sorry, we never had that conversation, but go ahead.
I got shut down 4th of July because they said that I was doing bareboats and I was doing 100% captain charters. So to keep up with the Joneses, I moved my stuff out of there because nobody would budge on it, and that was the rules. So now 3 years later, you guys are going to take a vote on to give up some livery license and all that other good stuff. I'm going to want some back. I want to come back and get mine. I had parking. I had parking for 40 people to get on a boat. So I'm saying I will be wanting one, and there's probably a lot of other people just like me that had to move to keep up with everybody else. So, you know, you might be opening yourself up for some legal right there because I'm definitely, if you guys hand them out this way, I'm raising my hand and I want one. I want 10 of them. I don't want one, I want 10 of them right here in Destin. So, and I got the parking, so. Any questions?
No, but just to clarify, we never talked about the number of people on your vessels for the city's perspective. What we talked about and what I said, and I still say, is that under the existing code, bareboats are considered a livery vessel.
Mm-hmm. And at the time you
And the
said.
reason is because
Go
our
ahead, ma'am.
code provides that if you do not have a captain in control at all times, you're falling within the city's definition of a livery vessel. Now,
Mhm.
council can choose to change that or not, that's a policy decision, but what it currently says is that you have to have control, the captain has to have control at all times. When you're a bareboat, that control is relinquished to the person renting the vessel and not the captain.
Oh, I know.
I just want to
rules.
clarify
Yes,
what I've
ma'am.
said before.
I know the rules
Thanks.
but at the time I was pounding on the desk saying, hey, I can only do six-packs here and all these other people are bareboating. So go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. She was speaking to me, Dewey, so I just was talking back. So, and I was not talking back, I was just answering her question. I deal with Ms. Kopp in 2 different places, so I was not talking back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to speak to the livery issue. I'm Captain Kyle Lowe. Captain Kyle Lowe, operate Charter Boat Special Case 66 Harbor Boulevard in Destin. I have a six-pack charter vessel, and bear with me, I often rely on the likes of Jim Green and Gary Jarvis who understand me and take what I want to say and put it in more eloquent terms. Upon hearing the efforts of some to become bareboat charters operating with over 6 passengers out of Destin, it took only a minute to realize a dangerous doorway was possibly going to be cracked open. Exempting bareboat charters from the existing livery ordinance will lead to uncontrolled growth. Where will it stop? I reached out to numerous charter boat owners that I respect and I feel I have an open and honest dialogue with. Maybe not about fishing, we're honest, but everything else we are. I like to think that the ones I spoke with know I have their back, and I expect the same. Make no mistake, as a six-pack vessel, I'm watching this situation very closely. If it were to increase the already vastly oversaturated number of fishing charters, I would have no choice but to follow the precedents others set and follow suit, thus becoming basically an over 6 vessel virtually overnight. I would do this as a means of survival. However, this would be incredibly unfair to my friends and peers in our industry operating under a COI, otherwise known as an over 6 passenger inspected vessel here in Destin. Furthermore, it stands to destroy the value of those over 6 vessels' businesses and their permits. We all just get on a even playing field the snap of a finger. I hurt Alan, I hurt Justin. I had never had plans to do that, but if the precedent's set, 100% I will. Trust me, the precedents of how to operate bareboats, or even illegally altogether, are out there in the wide open for all of us to see. We all know the means people are doing it. It's not hidden. It's openly spoke about in our community, how to do the illegal charters. You just follow suit. You just follow the precedent that's been allowed by the Coast Guard and FWC up to this point. However, should the bareboat issue be kept in check by the city of Destin, I would simply continue as I have as a six-pack vessel and respect the COI/six-pack regs that have been in place for decades as set forth by the U.S. Coast Guard. As this nice lady was talking a minute ago, sometimes I'm a simple guy, and sometimes you have to apply common sense. So if somebody has a bareboat charter to take over 6 patchers, and it's a pontoon boat, not a big deal if you pick your captain. And as a bareboat charter, as she pointed out, the renter, the client, is supposed to supply the captain. Now, lists are provided of a number of captains, but let's apply common sense. If you take a pontoon boat and say, hey, there's Kyle, and people who've seen me drive a special case, some of these guys won't want me driving their boat. So, yeah, he can drive this pontoon boat. But if you have a high 6-figure to mid 7-figure vessel, does anybody applying common sense believe they're going to allow them to show up with a captain and say, here's my captain, off we go? Thank you.
Bet you can't guess what I'm going to talk about. Ryan Holloway, 530 Beach Drive. I own Holloway Yachts, Fishing Fun Destin. I'm partnered in Craft Yachts, Beach Coast Yachts. We have 4 yachts, 2 Aquilas, and we have a fishing company. The last thing that was said before I forget, I do understand the point. Yeah, we're not going to allow any captain to take our boats. You're out your damn mind if you think we're going to do that. But with that said, we do have a list of 4+ qualified captains on each vessel that they call, they get in touch with, and they are connected, and then the captain can then take. But now I have someone that doesn't like one of my captains, and she had the option, and on July 4th, he's not driving that boat. I gave her a list. I said, call John. And they get a list on every single deal. I've sent y'all my contracts. There's a list of 4 or 6 names, DocuSign on the last page, and they call them. It's clear as day. So the only people in the world that I know of that think this is illegal or something are these guys back here. Literally, y'all are going to tell us that the Coast Guard, that the city's right, the Coast Guard's wrong, when I have the Coast Guard get on my boat and approve this every single year on every single boat. I pay a compliance company thousands of dollars to make sure that we're there, everything we have is done, and then the Coast Guard comes and they give us VSCs, UPVs, everything to actually permit this to happen. So they're trying to tell me that the Coast Guard's wrong? They're not. I'm sorry, they're not. And like I said, the livery thing is a rental. We are a private yacht charter companies with private owners, and we're big, high, expensive boats. I agree 100% with the pontoons, everybody running each other over because we worry about it. I put people on the bow of the boat so we don't hit anybody, I make them run radars in the harbor, which is not really a good thing, but I'm scared about Sea-Doo. Like going under, like I'm worried about it, and we can spot it. We have the most expensive electronics. Our boats are paid for, and they are very well taken care of. And I think, isn't the whole idea that we want to actually make Destin a better place? Like, do we want to provide a more high-end client base, bring more money in, clean the harbor up? So we have these multi-million yachts coming in, dollar yachts coming in, $1 million yachts coming in, bringing you those people that will probably go fishing, that will probably go this another day, put money in his community because they are the people that can actually afford to do this crap. And then we're going to say, no, we don't want you anymore after y'all been allowing us to do it for 4 years? I don't know. But this would be the only place in Florida that's going to put a stop to it. And I think that's kind of ridiculous when all we have to do is go to Sandestin and start all over. So I hope to not to do that. I mean, I pay Keith Howard, I can't, actually not allowed to say how much, a lot for my boats, and I hope y'all make the right decision here, because we're not trying to stop, or we're not trying to break any rules here. We're not. We're trying to pay taxes. Like, we're literally trying to get money. So that's all I got.
Quick question. How many, you say you have 4, he has 4. Anybody, because I asked the staff today, and they didn't know, how many certified yachts we have in our harbor?
I think Larry has 2. I have 3. Let's see. I have 4 in the harbor. The Aquilas are in Baytown. Matt has what, 3 or 4? 4. Besides people sneaking in and trying to pick up off of Kim Perry's dock, I don't know of any others.
Okay.
So.
Anybody else?
Hey, I'm Alan Staples. I live over on North Lakeside. I'm a 3rd generation charter commercial fisherman here in Destin. I own and operate 2 over 6 boats, and I agree with everything Jim Green said. As far as the Charter Boat Association stance on this, the Destin Charter Fleet is the heart and soul of Destin. The fisherman is Destin. That's Dewey, you know that. I mean, everybody knows that. And I feel like they need to be protected right now with this. This is an opportunity to expand in a way that it doesn't need to be expanded. And I feel like the city needs to protect the fishermen. That's all I got. So, thank y'all.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Scott Robson. I've been a charter boat operator pretty much all my life for 40 years, some years. I sold my business to Phoenix, and I purchased a pontoon boat that is a charter boat. And I am an inspected 16-passenger charter boat. Had to go through all the hoops, inspections, everything. That's the reason why I got it. I don't believe in bareboating. For one, they don't have to deal with all the regulations that we do. I don't think it's right. I also think that if we exempt that fact that you have the livery vessels right now for the state of Florida, so those are the only boats that can be bareboated. If you exempt that, then you're going to see an explosion of pontoon boats more in the area, because there are no rules and regulations for them. For myself, I got to buy a park pass. I got to pay the county $400 a month to operate out there to go to Crab Island. Bareboat boats don't have to pay anything. There are no rules or regulations for them. Now, livery, I get it. There are livery boats. If they're legalized to have bareboat captains on them, it is what it is. But I don't believe in that the city should exempt the other pontoon boats that are not livery boats and open it up. You're asking for a whole new barrage of boats, because then everybody's just go out there and get a bunch of pontoon boats, whether there's parking for them or not, and jam them in here. So I'm against that. Thank you.
I'm Captain Brandy Miles. We actually have 3 charter vessels out of our, I'll need my address, right? We live here in Destin, Florida. And we have 3 charter vessels. I have 2 6-pack vessels and a multi-passenger vessel operating out of Destin Harbor there at Harbor Walk Village. I do believe that the letter sent by the DCBA, we fully support that, as well as if we decide to make the exemption, as most of the captains you've heard have said, we'll see a free-for-all, we'll see chaos. You know, I have a 40-foot boat that's 6-pack, and I also have a 55-foot boat that's a 6-passenger boat. We could just, you know, slap a bareboat charter on it and call it free-for-all. Well, everybody else will do the same. You know, I follow strict guidelines by the Coast Guard. I also have one of my vessels that is, you know, expected. That doesn't mean I can carry more than 6 passengers on my 6-pack boat, because they come down and look at my safety equipment and my fire equipment. You know, that's just my personal opinion. So I would just say keep the medallion system on those boats that want to operate as bareboat. That makes them just a part of the livery like everyone else. Keeps the peace for the whole fleet, I believe, and for the harbor as well. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. I am Jonathan Hodges, 248 Ben Arrow Drive in Destin here. We've dealt with each other through the harbor dredging issue. As for this livery issue, so I'm also East Pass Sailing Company's co-owner. We do the courtesy inspections on East Pass Sailing Company, but we operate as a legal six-pack charter with a business tax receipt. But as the Captain Buccaneer, we do the fully inspected COI, and the inspections are just not even comparable. The COI inspections, they go through it with a fine-tooth comb. The courtesy inspections, they come on, they look around, they don't see anything dangerous and give the thumbs up. So the inspections themselves are very intensive when it comes to the COI. They take your boat out, they take your crew out, they make them go through the training that they went through, they ask them questions about firefighting. It's just apples and oranges there. So speaking of the free-for-all, I've spoken to several, not yacht captains, but bareboat pontoon captains over the years that have pulled up on the dock that East Pass Sailing is on to pick up passengers. And I'm like, hey, just wondering what you're doing over here on the dock. It happens all the time, all through the harbor there. And they're usually like, oh, I heard I can do this bareboat thing, so I got myself a pontoon boat, here I am. And I think that the unlimited growth is a real concern with if these exemptions are given. So I guess that's all I had to say. I appreciate your time.
Push this thing to make it work. Name is Justin Destin. Live in Destin, Florida. Own and operate Charter Boat Unreal. I have owned and operated a charter vessel since 2005. I support everything that Jim Green and most of the charter guys have said, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings if Destin was the only city in Florida that didn't have this. I think maybe the council needs to maybe go back over, if it's possible, some of the medallion laws and how that's wrote up, because I think it is a little confusing for some guys. It sounds like they may have got the short end of the deal, which I don't know. I think we're slippery slope for sure, looking right down into a Pandora's box if this thing goes down. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
All right, so I'm Stan Phillips. I live here in Destin, Ocean View Drive. I started running an over six boat for Ben Jr. in the 90s, had 6 passenger boats in the meantime, and then I bought an over six boat, the Destination, in 2013. And I can tell you, like many of these guys have already said, the inspection process for a COI over six boat compared to a courtesy inspection is a different world. Since I've owned this boat, we've put new engines in it, new transmissions in it, new exhaust in it, new fuel tanks in it, and I can assure you that I have Coast Guard guys there every step of the way. They've got to go to the manufacturing place and inspect the fuel tanks before they go into boats. There are people that I know, that these guys will know, that have bought really nice, really big yacht boats with the intention of converting them to over six. And I do not know any that have pulled it off, because it's not easy to do. It's the structure of the boat, not to mention, the training, the safety equipment, the things we have to have for, just to keep an overnight endorsement on the COI. I haven't run an overnight trip in a decade, but to keep that, all these, I guess, watchman systems and emergency exit ladders and all the things that we spend money on just to keep that Coast Guard endorsement as an over six boat is light years ahead of fire extinguisher, life jackets. You're good to go. It's a different world. And like has also been said, it's not what you have now, as Mr. King pointed out, it's the yet. is what you have now, but, what will you have in the future if you kind of let this get out of, Pandora's box get open? And it'll be similar, I think, to like the online booking stuff. Like if I go, I've done this for a living since 1989. If I go Google Destin charter fishing, I won't know 3/4 of the people that are on there. And some of it's because I'm just not good at it with names and faces, but some of it is because it has exploded in the last handful of years. And I would think that you will have something that might start small now and just get completely out of hand if it's given legs at all. Thank you.
Thank you. That cover one more, all right.
James Dexter, 28 Moreno Point Road, has nothing to do with the presentation. That was earlier, but I had a couple questions that I needed clarification, and maybe some ideas might help with this, because this is a real problem. I grew up in Miami and then Fort Lauderdale, and I watched the same problems as a kid, and you're having them here. This city's growing faster than some people, I guess, would like. My number one question is, the council's provided information. Are only the information presented is allowed to be considered on some of these subjects? I'm talking about generally any subject at all that's brought up. How do you guys, you're only allowed to vote on what's presented to you, correct?
The staff can provide information on.
Correct. Well, thank you very much, sir. Second one, are you working for, the city protecting, I don't know if it's just the council, just the mayor, what is the primary on the legal thing here? Are we able to bring you situations and seek what you're?
I represent the city and the city council.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you have an issue adverse to the city, you would need your own legal counsel. But if you were going to ask a question about something in the city,
And
not
providing
legal advice,
information to
I can respond to you about city questions.
Thank you very much. I
You're welcome.
appreciate your time. Thank you for acknowledgement.
Do we have anybody else?
My name's Taylor Waterfield. I live on Calhoun Avenue. As you guys can guess, I'd second what Jim and these guys have talked about as far as delivery vessels go. And I wanted to bring another issue up that my family owns an insurance agency. My wife works for them. My father actually owns it. And they've seen an issue with the bareboat charters addressing them trying to get insurance to carry over 6 people on these charters. They can't get it. You cannot get an insurance policy for over 6 people unless you have a COI. So I heard one of these gentlemen talk about how big and nice their boat was. There's some really big, nice 6-pack boats. It's nothing to do with what the boat looks like. It's about the safety features that are on the boat. And nobody's saying that you can't do it. You just need to get your boat inspected and get a COI instead of trying to loophole or backdoor your way in.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Rachel Staples, 844 North Lakeside Drive here in Destin. I am the owner and manager of a couple different over 6 passenger boats, the Hunter Proof, the Hard Charger. Over the years, I've also owned and managed multiple 6 passenger boats. I feel like most of the big points have been talked on already, so I won't waste your time reiterating them, but I do support the DCBA stance on everything. I do think it's a slippery slope. I think that, over here, he has definitely, you hear someone who left the city who is going to come back in, and that's kind of an example of what you're opening yourselves up to if you do this exemption. I think there's a reason that you did the medallion system, and it seems to be working, and I support that.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Well, this was an agenda item, which means the council can make motions or discuss, hopefully make motions and then discuss.
I think Council Member Stevens has something to say on it. Under his reports, he had moved it up.
Exactly where I was headed.
All right, well, I want to say thanks for coming and everyone voicing their sides. remember, the definition has always included bareboat charters. So the definition that I'm suggesting is not changing the actual definition. Pretty much my goal is to pretty much try to have something that satisfies the county with Destin setting the standard. Pretty much by the feedback from the audience, we got a few different opinions, but that's what discussion's about. So let's hash it out and try to make something that works, as opposed to something that's written down and it's difficult to enforce. So pretty much I'm basing my thoughts on pretty much how to make the job easier for the Sheriff's Department, code compliance, and basing my thoughts on the harbor capacity study. So already hearing issues with the Sheriff's Department. So the county has a wristband system. Unfortunately, Destin doesn't fall under that, and it makes the sheriff's job very difficult in the water. Code compliance, their job's real tough. So any tools that we can provide to make their job more efficient, that's the ultimate goal. So pretty much I'm bringing up this topic because there seems to be a lot of confusion on the definition. I'm hoping that we can suggest a new definition that doesn't change the meaning, but we just want to make it more clear to where it's understandable. So a few things that we're doing is pretty much in the definition is removing the internal combustion engine because electric engines are now here. Pretty much adding clarity to the bareboat stipulations. Florida and SB 606 has new standards on liveries, such as boating clubs are now classified under it. But bareboat charters have always been a livery. So Destin, I mean, we've had multiple temporary moratoriums waiting on the Destin Harbor capacity study. Pretty much once the Destin Harbor capacity study came out, we got the data that showed that our harbor is overcrowded. So Destin created a 5-year moratorium. The 5 years is based on the next study, which is the CAP 107 study. So we shouldn't be increasing these numbers until the next study is released. So in saying so, I'm going to make a recommendation for discussion, and then after that we can talk more about it. So I would like to adopt County Ordinance 22-8, Section 12-238.I. I want to adopt Okaloosa County Ordinance 22-8, Section 12-239.B. I want to require up-to-date FWC livery permits as part of the paperwork that is submitted yearly. I want to adopt the definition that was provided in your packet. And then also, I would like to add another step to the livery and charter BTR registration. So for example, if a user selects a charter, then it'll ask the question whether or not it's uninspected, inspected, or bareboat. And then if the user selects bareboat, it'll have them acknowledge that it's a livery, and then it'll continue the application to a livery. If a user selects uninspected or inspected vessels, the BTR application will continue as normally. If the user selects livery, then it'll pretty much continue as the current livery application process goes. So I'm going to leave it as that so that way we can discuss more. But before we discuss, there's a lot of confusion on Coast Guard regulations on bareboat. So we actually have Lieutenant Nealis here. I would like to invite him to the podium to answer a couple questions. I have two. After that, I'll let you guys ask your questions after that. So if we can invite Lieutenant Nealis up.
Thanks for attending tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Hope I can answer any of your questions and clarify any of the confusion. I think a lot of it does center around definitions and the different ways that the federal government and our regulations that we've defined bareboat charters versus the ways that the state and local governments have defined livery, and there seems to be some, I guess, some tension there. So whatever I can, answer or clarify. I don't know if I can make some comments or if you just want to ask questions.
Do you want to make some comments first and then we can ask some questions?
Okay. There were just a couple of things I wanted to clarify. So with bareboat charters, there always has to be within the charter agreement an option for the charterer, that is the person that is renting the vessel, to hire their own captain. So you can't limit them to the people on your list. You can have your suggested list of captains, but there always has to be an opt-out clause. And I understand that some operators don't necessarily want, an unknown captain to operate one of their boats. And so they have the option to be a UPV, an uninspected passenger vessel, and carry 6 or less, or be inspected by the Coast Guard. But there is no way to be a true bareboat charter without allowing the charterer to truly take control of the vessel. And that means giving them the option to select a captain of their choosing, even if it's outside of the list provided. So I wanted to clarify that.
Can I just interrupt you while he does that?
Sure.
Question on that real quick before you keep going?
Please.
That owner, though, can then just say, well, then we're not going to rent it to you, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
They could just cut the deal and they're no longer going to be renting it from them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then if they give them a list and then the customer says, oh, I'll take option C, they're good to go? Because they chose option C?
Because they chose option
Right.
C, they would be good to go.
Okay.
I would say that there's lots of different problems that we run into with bareboat charters. So kind of going off of your example, let's say they want to select option C, and option C isn't there that day. So they go, okay, well, I'll select option B, and he's not here either. You're going to have to go with option A, right? If we find out over the course of our investigation on a bareboat charter investigation that you really only had one option, there was no opt-out option to go find your own captain, right? Like that's not a true bareboat charter. That goes against the intent of the law, the way the law that it has been interpreted in case law, and it puts the inspected passenger vessels at a competitive disadvantage. So we would pursue enforcement on that.
Actually, so you actually answered one of my questions. Has there been any yacht boats that have actually been inspected, or at least that you know of in the area?
What do you mean by yacht boat?
I don't know what the determination is. I don't know if anyone else could add some insight. So, for instance, any of these citizens are asking. Yeah, I guess, yacht certifications. Is there something with that?
So are you saying, have there been vessels that weren't built to the regulations, right, to the subchapter T?
Correct, to get their
regulations,
CUI.
but then basically backwards converted and became an inspected vessel? I don't know about locally in the area. We've received one inquiry, and it was just an inquiry, somebody that was kind of putting feelers out there to try to figure out what it would take to do that. In my experience, I've seen that happen, I think maybe twice at other units that I've been stationed at. It's relatively uncommon just due to the burden of trying to backwards retrofit a vessel that wasn't built to the regulations and try to make it comply to the regulations. It's usually cost prohibitive.
Can I ask a question? So these private yachts that are currently in our waters of Destin, and they have their own captains or they have their own list, and they're not currently in what we call our livery, have they gone through that stringent Coast Guard inspection?
No, ma'am, not if they're not inspected. So if they don't have a certificate of inspection, and let's say they're just doing 6 or less because they have their own captain and they want to utilize their own captain, they're restricted to doing 6 or less. They're classified as a UPV, an uninspected passenger vessel, and they're not required to be inspected.
Real quick, Andy, is there a way you can put this slide on the screen for me? I'm not sure what packet it was in.
It was in Lewis's packet.
Give me a second, I'll get it up.
I'm going to leave it up to council because I don't have any other questions for him.
Well, you were expounding on some frequently asked questions, it sounded like, and we, sorry. No big deal. I think we kind of cut you off, so if you want to keep rolling.
Well, there was one other thing. So a question has come up because of the difference in the way that Coast Guard defines bareboat charter. You know, for us, it has nothing to do with whether or not you have a licensed captain on board. It has to do basically with whether or not the vessel is being rented under a charter agreement and the way the regulation's written or the U.S. code is written with no crew provided. In other words, the charter company is not assigning a crew. They can have a suggested list, but at the end of the day, the charterer is in charge of actually hiring, firing, supplying the crew to the vessel. And that's where it gets a little bit confusing, I think. And the livery definition, as I understand it, is at least in part having to do with whether or not there is a licensed U.S. Coast Guard captain on board. But for us, if there is a licensed captain on a bareboat charter or there isn't, it doesn't make any difference because the captain in that capacity of a bareboat charter captain is not acting under the authority of his or her credential. And so we do not see that as changing the definition or changing the classification of the vessel on that voyage.
Questions? I swear, I've taken more notes and read more on this, and every time I talk to somebody in this community, sometimes they make the case of the other side without knowing that they're making the case of the other side because there's so much confusion. And I agree with John, it's all about the definitions, okay? And I'll give you an example. Inspection, okay? Sure. You have your inspection, right? Then you have your courtesy inspection. Then you have, Joe Blow, the dock owner, doing their inspection to make sure you're not going to go under. Yep, okay, it looks like it'll float. Sure. And everybody says, well, what? So when you bring this back, or actually I'm going to probably make a substitute motion, but whenever it gets back to us, I want these terms defined. I want clearly a COI inspection or a courtesy inspection or the yacht broker brother-in-law inspected it to make sure that it was seaworthy. We talked about deconfliction. We're not going to solve that problem. You have your rules, and the state of Florida uses whole different terminology with different meanings. Again, definitions. And we are a subset of the state of Florida. We're not a subset of the Coast Guard. So we have to follow Florida, Okaloosa County, generally, those rules and those statutes. And so what I think we've tried to do is craft it where, we don't have this explosion, because what we all agreed, and probably your predecessor or your predecessor's predecessor, we had a safety problem in the harbor. We had overcrowding. We've proved that we have overcrowding. We had parking problems in the harbor. We had all these problems. So we put in a moratorium, said, nope, that's it. Until we figure out what we're going to do, no more. Sure. Now, I do have an issue with our policy. Those medallions shouldn't be on the market for sale. Those are registrations, just like if I register my car. Okay, if I don't re-register my car, you know what? It's not licensed. It can't be driven on the road, period. That is a registration. This is not New York City. It's not a medallion where, lucky me, I got 10 in the first year, and now I'm just sitting on them, waiting for the price to go up over, $500,000 each. They're a registration. Okay, that's all they are. You have a registration, you can operate in our harbor. You don't have a registration, you can't park, or you can't dock there, I guess, permanently. So, and I want that fixed, because this thing about, oh, well, people are selling their medallions, or there's some for sale. No, they're not some for sale. They shouldn't be for sale, because that gets around the problem of safety and parking. Because, I have one slip, and I bought 10 medallions, and I kind of keep them somewhere else, and I flow them in and out of there. No, that's not how that system.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So a while back when the whole medallion thing was brought up about selling, there was opposition for it, but council actually gave approval to sell it.
And that's right, but what we did is, when someone wants to sell their medallion, so we have said you have to come to the city and tell the city that you're no longer using it, then the city keeps a record of that, and then when the person purchases it, they can purchase the medallion. That does not give them the right to operate. They still have to come in, fill out the livery application, and show that they have their parking, they meet all the codes. So selling the medallion does not transfer the right to do business. You still have to get your permit from the city. So we're saying the number of vessels in the harbor under the moratorium stays the same, but if you don't have parking, you're out of luck.
Okay, well, I want to at least send me the minutes for where we voted for people can sell medallions and the discussion that was, and I'll go back and watch it on the video.
And real quick, while we got Lieutenant Nealis up, can we just direct questions to him first and then
No.
go into more detail?
No, because I'm gonna, some of my questions he will be able to answer. The problem is he's not the problem. I understand your role, you know, you got your rules, and you go in and you inspect, and you know, if you do a COI or what, or a courtesy or whatever, sure, you know, you're just going to follow your rules, right?
But our definition refers to U.S. Coast Guard, so I think he should have a little bit of influence on that.
But we know what his definitions are. We know what his policies are. Our problem is within us. You know, when you boil this down, I think we've got, and I understand, because the question of John, I think it was Johnny's question. Well, what happens if this bridal shower decides to take 12 rod and reels onto the party boat? Onto the yacht that is captained and is allowed to, as long as it's got captain. You know, by the way, insurance that came up. These guys all have insurance, or they wouldn't have yachts. They wouldn't be able to charter yachts. So somebody said, I don't remember who, that they don't have insurance, they can't get insurance. Every one of those yachts has insurance, or they couldn't operate as a yacht. So, yeah. So I guess my question is on, besides the medallions, our definitions. So if you're a yacht, I think we were told, and we probably need to confirm, but I believe everybody that spoke tonight, that you're recreational. So we put in our definition, you can't be commercial, okay? Or you have to be recreational to apply for this exemption. I think part of my problem here is we're talking about 10, 12 boats. And whoever spoke was right. They attract the people we want to be coming, because you know what? The ladies go out on that wedding party and they go around, having been in the tourism business for a while, and they have their champagne and they have their wine, and what do the guys do? They either go play golf or they go out on a charter boat and they go fishing. And so everybody wins. And I don't think, what I've gotten talking to a bunch of people is the charter boat folks think the yacht folks are the enemy. They're not the enemy. That wasn't what caused our problem. What caused our problem was 8,000 pontoon boats that just blew up out of nowhere, and they were unregulated, they were unlicensed, and so that's what we were trying to solve. We're not trying to solve 10 or 12 luxury yachts that take people out for sunset cruises or whatever. And so I just want to see your definitions. I'll wait till you and Tori get done. I just want to see your definitions. And I think that I'm in favor of giving, you know, the 10 or 12. And if we say, well, they got to go buy a registration, I'm not sure I agree with that, but that might solve the problem in the short term, because, you know, that's what we're trying to do, is solve a problem. And I think we've created one by bringing this up. And, you know, when I thought it was two weeks ago or a month ago, I thought it was just a simple word change.
Well, what about if any liveries that had a BTR before the moratorium that they're grandfathered in? Because they may have been interpreted differently.
No, we made a mistake. We've acknowledged that we made a mistake.
But if we made the mistake, shouldn't we own up to it?
No, because then you just perpetuate the mistake. You're going to allow them to sell that medallion, even though they didn't have a medallion and they shouldn't have gotten, you know? You're going to allow them to sell that?
I got a question, sir, for you, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Apologize, got off track. I must have started that, so.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here to answer questions.
So, there was, there's statements about the inspections, right? It sounds like some people would just throw your courtesy inspection under the bus. Is that Coast Guard that does a courtesy inspection, or is that not Coast Guard?
So the Coast Guard Auxiliary will do some of that, and they're our civilian volunteer workforce. To your point about getting the terminology down, we call those vessel safety checks. We don't call them inspections, just to differentiate, just because there is so much more that goes into a true inspection under the regulations.
Okay. And then so on this, we were given this. I think this is Coast Guard Miami. Recreational bareboat charter, safety equipment required by law, no crew provided. So does that mean if a bareboat charter has crew members on it working, that means like it's illegal bareboat?
Depending on how many people are on board, if they're trying to be a bareboat, if they're carrying more than 6, and by crew provided, we essentially mean crew assigned, right? That it's provided by the owner.
By the owner.
Then if they have more than 6 on board, that is an illegal charter.
And what happens if a bareboat renter chooses no captain? Is that an option?
That is an option unless the owner doesn't agree. There could be concerns about drinking and things like that, but there's nothing that compels, within the law, that compels a charter to hire a captain at all.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dest.
Do we have a motion in front of us?
I got Mr. Guile. He has the floor right now, according to.
Mr. Gall?
My question's not for Lieutenant Nealis, so if somebody else has a question for Lieutenant Nealis, please take that opportunity now before I speak. Nope. Wonderful.
Thank you for attending.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've listened to the community, and I've also listened to Mr. Bagby over here, but one thing I have to disagree with is I don't think Destin is just like every coastal city in Florida. We're in a unique situation where the Army Corps of Engineers did the study that explicitly declared our waterways are overly congested. This poses a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare of this community. It is my opinion the primary function of this council is to serve the community, preserve its resources while preserving public health, safety, and welfare. And the profitability of a business should not compromise these principles, and I will not support anything that jeopardizes these principles. So it's my opinion we need to limit as many vessels out there as possible until after the second portion of the study that indicates any capabilities of opening up more vessels.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks for all the input and for all y'all being here. When this item got brought up last meeting, I asked Kim a lot of questions. I said, how does this affect the charter boat industry? And we couldn't think of a way that it affected you guys and gals. And then word got out that this could happen, and I don't know how many phone calls I got that day. Some of y'all called, Other people called. It was an uproar, and I eventually just started texting people like, "Yep, got it, thanks." You know, I don't think what Mr. Bagby, what you're saying about the this isn't just for 10 or 12 yacht boats. I think where it rounds out is the implications of what that does for those yacht boats puts the value of their business in jeopardy. So if you take, like Captain Lowe said, if this goes forward and he is all of a sudden able to take 12 people versus 6 people, that ups the value of his business. But the over 6, the inspected vessels, it tanks their business because now they, you get where I'm going with that. So it doesn't just affect these yacht boat businesses. I'm not unsupportive of it. I think it is a need that people will pay for. It's something that people want to do when they come to this town or any town. Is they go on a big, pretty, fun boat, have a good time. I think it is a need. So I'm not for doing away with it. I don't think that there should be a special exception for that. I think that, I see what these guys go through on a daily basis. Oh, nope, can't go do this, can't go do that. I got Coast Guard on Wednesday. That's a big deal. Just the experiences I've had with charter boat captains is like, man, they pour their life, their blood, sweat, tears to make sure that their vessel is safe for 17, 20, 24, however many people they're allowed to take. So I don't think that this should be given lightly. A lot of these guys have given their lives to this industry. Third, fourth generation charter boat captains. I don't think that if this could potentially strip their livelihood away, that's a really big problem. I think the parking implications of what this does are big. I mean, we've got a parking issue in this town. If we turn 60 boats from 6 passengers to 12 passengers, you do the math on how many more parking spaces we need. I have friends who are in the process of buying boats, going from the 6-pack boat to an over 6 passenger boat. They're pouring everything they have into doing that. Some of them are in this room. Is the value of that business anywhere close if everybody else can take 12 people? No. I know another guy who bought, like one of the gentlemen said, bought a beautiful yacht boat, big, pretty boat that stands out. Doesn't look like a charter boat. He's doing everything he can to make it an over 6 boat, and they're putting him through the ringer. So I don't think it's to be taken lightly. I think that I don't know if it's. I personally, what I've been hearing is that if you want to take that many people on this big, beautiful boat, big, expensive, pretty boat, then you should go through the same process that these guys go to do that. So that's all I've got. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. I just first wanted to confirm and reiterate that no matter what happens with Mr. Stevens' motions or substitute motions, nothing's effectively being put into place tonight. This would all come from an ordinance change, potentially, or an ordinance change?
If we were to amend the code, there would be an ordinance with, depending on where it goes, either 2 or 3 public hearings. If it goes in the LDC, there would be 3 because it would go to LPA first and then council twice. And if it was put in the code of ordinance, it would be just at council twice.
Right, so just for everybody that's here and watching and listening, no matter what happens, if a vote happens, it doesn't mean, that's the new law taking place in the city of Destin. So I think there's a lot of pieces to this. I think Mr. Stevens is trying to fix some gray areas in our LDC. I think that was the whole intent of what this started as. If his way of fixing it possibly affects fishing fleet, and all that, I don't think that's what he's wanting to do either. So, yachts is a new, I say new, it's our area, it's somewhat new. This style of business it's wanted. It's people want to do it. It's a customer, and just because of livery moratorium we did 5, 6, 7 years ago that we started, it wasn't happening back then. So, with everything that we should do up here, we have to take into consideration times that change and whatnot. Don't want to impact the fishing charters. I don't know. I need to know whatever happens after tonight when we get this brought back to us. How can we do it to how can we find a way to have all parties successfully operate without affecting somebody's livelihood, right? If the fear from the fishing captain is that a yacht's going to take people fishing, well, maybe that's something that we're able to do in those ordinances based upon the registrations that we might be creating in this new style of business that enforces. I don't know. If their fear is that they're going to put poles on a yacht, then how can we fix that, right? But I think if the goal of the yachts is to take people to Crab Island, and they can do that with 12 people and not have a COI, then let's figure out how to do that. Different type of inspection from Coast Guard. Maybe we don't allow a Coast Guard auxiliary inspection. Maybe the city of Destin has another type of inspection that is more special. I don't know. I want to end goal to see how we can have a new economy of business do things correctly and be successful, because they're operating for a customer base that is a new customer base to this area, and I don't think we shouldn't miss out on that. But at the same time, we can't let that impact the heritage of Destin. I think we all agree with that. At the same time, we don't want the liveries to be impacted. So it's a mess for sure. And the parking thing and 100%. But that's why we hope that our code department and the building department and BTR renewals and change of use applications and all that, we hope staff is handling that all the appropriate way. It's kind of like somebody was saying something earlier about people doing illegal ice cream or snow cones, or I forget what she was talking about. Well, there's a process if somebody's operating illegally. You call and complain. 75% of the time, the people that say stuff around here, nobody complains about it. So it's hard to say somebody's doing something illegal, but if nobody calls and complains, we can't stop them, But parking issues and all that, hopefully staff takes care of it, But I want to see how we can get this moving to the next step. And Mr. Stevens bringing it up tonight is the greatest way to start that process. So I've told staff, and like Mr. Bagby said, I talked to 7 different people, captains, charters, yachts, residents, is everybody, and I get more confused every time I talk to the next person. And so, I would love when we update it to have it clear, like if my 5th, 6th grader can draw me a picture, I understand things a lot better. And when we do this, visual representation would be fantastic to hopefully have, and maybe takes it back to the committee. We have a harbor committee. We have all sorts of committees. We should put this back on them, taking in this new yacht stuff into consideration. The whole way I think we can do this by not affecting people's livelihood, but also helping people's livelihood at the same time. So I can't wait to continue.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if I may clarify something, there is no motion on the floor at this time. We got recommendations.
I thought that was the case. Being the chair, I waited to the very last to have any comment on this issue, which is a little hard for me, but I've been able to do it. There are a couple of issues I think that we need to clarify. There's been a moratorium on federal charter boat licenses now for a very, very long time. I would expect that if yacht people start taking folks fishing in the federal zone, that the federal government would go and have a hard discussion with them and tell them that's not allowed, guys, because there are no more federal charter boat fishing licenses allowed. But I'm not confident that that would happen in a timely or fast fashion. The other point, and the Coast Guard, the gentleman from the Coast Guard can correct me, but if the yachts carry more than 6 people, they have to be inspected. Is that correct? That's one we need to get clarified.
Commercial does. Recreational does not, is my understanding.
So there are two ways that they could operate with more than 6 people legally. They could either be inspected or they could operate as a bareboat charter, in which case all of the rules pertaining to not assigning a captain, giving an opt-out option to not pick from the list of captains, all of those things apply. And in that case, they can carry 12 people plus the charter actually makes 13 plus whatever crew captain. So, you could see 14 people on board.
Okay, so in order to do that, though, the owner has to agree that he's going to have those other options, one which would even include having a captain that's not on his list?
Yes, sir. So the way that we go about enforcing these things, usually we take a look at the charter agreement when we come on board. There should be some verbiage in there about, here's the list, and
because I agree totally with Kevin. The way I understand it is you have recreational and you have commercial. And 6 on a commercial vehicle or boat, you have to have the inspection.
That's correct. It all centers around definitions, of course.
Okay, right. So on a recreational, as long as it has a licensed captain, it can take more than 6 people.
Not by federal regulations, sir. So whether or not there's a licensed captain on board doesn't change, for us, the definition of a bareboat charter. So even though by federal terminology, they are a recreational vessel, and there are certain things that don't apply to them, like
Right.
it does for even the 6-packs, right, the UPVs. Just because they have a licensed captain on board doesn't mean that they don't have to comply with the bareboat charter regulations. They have to give choice of captain. They have to give an opt-out from the list. They have to comply with the bareboat charter regulations.
Okay, because that's not what the staff told us 2 weeks ago. So
And I think that-
recreational, what we were told 2 weeks ago is on a recreational, on a yacht, okay, that has a yacht certification, whoever provides that.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Right.
Is that they could carry, the whole bridal party if they wanted to, if that's what their vessel was rated for.
Not under the bareboat charter regulations. The only way they could do that, I mean, if you own your vessel and there's no consideration being exchanged, right, and it's just a private party on your vessel, you could take as many people as you can safely carry, really.
Under this diagram, it would be a pleasure vessel.
It would be, yes, like a pleasure craft. But once there's consideration exchanged of any kind, whether, in your 6-pack, you're hiring a vessel and they're providing the captain, or with a bareboat charter, there's a bareboat charter agreement, there's consideration being exchanged for signing that bareboat charter agreement, that's
Okay.
when federal regulations go into effect.
Thank you. When my turn comes around, I want the 2 yacht guys up here.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I do agree exactly with what Kevin was talking about. Mr. Schmidt said it exactly. It's gotten to be kind of confusing. I thought the yacht pleasure, which we want that kind of business in town here, I thought they went under the same stringent Coast Guard full-on inspections that all of our livery vessels go through. So I'm kind of confused at this point on where, they're just like, they have a certain area of what they're allowed to do, and there's not a real set of rules. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, yeah, this has become a beautiful way to bring in great, different type of money, different type of business, but I don't want it to affect the livelihood of our folks that are already setting up charters, that have been doing this and been doing it the right way through a very grueling paperwork system to get their licenses throughout the year, for them to go year after year. So I know you're not making any of the rules, but you've certainly clarified that there's a different type of inspection for a bareboat than it is for the yachts.
The yachts would be a bareboat
See what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
so,
I'm still confused on how you break it out, because it's like 6 people, 20 people. Why is there not a stringent Coast Guard requirement on a yacht when they've got even twice the amount of people?
Well, there would be. So I mean, we don't discriminate based on the type of vessel. You know, whether it's a very, very nice yacht, you know, in the common definition of a yacht, or a pontoon boat. Once consideration's being exchanged, then we take a look, okay, you know, how many people are you looking to carry? If it's more than 6, you got to comply with the bareboat charter regulations. If it's 6 or less, you can be a UPV. In any case, you can always be inspected, and that's ultimately what we encourage. We want more vessels to be inspected. That is in, you know, the interest of safety, public safety. So,
Well, just to conclude my portion of this, I'm glad that we're trying to put this all, like, yes, color me a picture too, because I'm going to need a whole lot better description of what we're allowing and what we're adding. So thank you for being here, because you've answered a lot of questions that I really had no idea about. And more importantly, I don't want our locals that have been doing this for decades, families that have had this tradition, all of a sudden they're just like thrown to the curb. Okay, we got a new deal here. They're making more money. They're bringing in different clientele. I don't want our locals and our folks that have been the business, the backbone of this fishing village for decades, to not be weighed in on this. So I'm glad that this is going to go through other committees and come back to us.
yes, ma'am.
Real quick, not to cut anybody off, but on that note, what y'all were talking about for, let's say, a pontoon boat or a yacht, they don't have to have a stability test. They don't have to go through the COI process. What's the difference? Like, how does what they do versus what they do, how does that differ in the Coast Guard's perspective? Because the qualifications for their vessel is very different than the qualifications for their vessel. How does that?
Definitely.
You can't tell them they can't go to the southwest edge in their boat, you know? So how does that differ?
So the real incentive to becoming Coast Guard inspected is that you can carry more people. You know, typically, you know, I mean, if you want to carry more than, you know, 13, then you have to become inspected. There's just no way around it. So that's why people do it. That's the only reason why anybody would want to go through that arduous process from cradle to grave, literally from construction, the keel being laid. You know, we inspect every weld, every installation of electrical equipment, machinery, life-saving appliances. We do a stability test. That's how we calculate, you know, the proper operating routes and conditions and how many people they can safely carry. There's a lot that goes into that. And the incentive for all of that is of course, that you can carry more people. With the 6-pack, I mean, you can carry, you know, obviously 6, and then with the bareboat charter, you can kind of get away with, you know, up to 13, but then there's a lot of stipulations around the crew, the captain, and all that kind of stuff. So the incentive is always pointing towards becoming an inspected vessel.
I am up, and I got a question for the yacht guys. I could have sworn one of you come, or both of you come on up. I want to know how many people you think you can carry without going through the COI inspection with your captain, because you've promised us that you would never send a boat out without a licensed captain because your insurance wouldn't cover it.
Can I go back one step to maybe help clarify even Mr. Eason? And I've had to do a deep dive on this, because smart people say, hey, Matt, I'm buying a boat. I'd like to buy a 42-footer instead of a 40-footer. But the only way I can do that is if you could charter it a couple times. Okay, here are the rules. It's going to sound confusing, but let me explain it. And it needs to be understood that the Coast Guard's always had their rules, right? And Congress stepped in 1993 and passed a Safety Vessels Act of 1993. And a congressman just put it in there. If it runs as bareboat, you can carry 12. They didn't ask the Coast Guard if they liked that. They just passed the law. And now the Coast Guard had to figure out, we have our uninspected passenger rules, and then we have our small passenger vessel, or otherwise known as inspected vessel rules, and now we have to put Congress's rule in here. And so it gets confusing for that reason. It's not the Coast Guard's logic to I don't believe. That's my personal opinion. Okay. So on the yacht, where it operates as a bareboat charter, it's uninspected, right? It's the same as if you went and bought a boat and carried people out. It's that standard, or what's known as recreational standard. Type 2 life jackets are acceptable, whereas on an inspected vessel, Type 1 life jackets are required.
But if you're doing it for money, what he just told me was to go above that 6 on the bareboat, you gotta have an inspection. No?
No.
Above 13.
To go above 6 and provide the crew and operate as a small passenger vessel, you have to be inspected. If you just rent the boat without the assigned crew, you can operate under it's legal term, but it's a bareboat authority, a bareboat charter agreement. And there's way more rules to it than we've been discussing. There's, did you give the crew or the charterer enough advance notice? Do you have it in writing? Did they pay the captain separately? Did you offer them to buy insurance on the boat is one of the requirements. And things like it's quite intense, and we follow it very, very closely because we want to be legal.
So your boats aren't rented? I'm sorry, they're not inspected.
Well,
COI inspected.
I have
See, now I'm violating my
I
own.
have COI boats.
Okay.
And then I manage bareboats, and the bareboats have the same rules as a recreational boat that, like you and I would buy, Sea Ray.
And your recreationals all have captains, either assigned or a list that you...
We require them to be operated by a licensed master as part of our charter offering.
Okay, and so your
They
bareboats...
can provide their own if my insurance company will adopt them, or they can choose one of the captains on the list.
And your bareboats don't ever take more than 6 people?
The bareboat is the one that can carry.
I'm sorry,
12 passengers.
it takes 12.
Yes.
No, I thought the COI...
And the bareboat is uninspected. The one that he says has the COI, I believe those are your tikis, correct?
Yeah, the tiki boats are expected to carry 18.
Right.
And they have a crew requirement of 2, and it
right,
has to be a master captain, and the crew have to be on a drug consortium, and we do annual inspections. It's very intense.
But your bareboats aren't inspected?
They're not inspected. They are on a drug consortium now. Now, I operate my bareboat just out of an abundance of caution at UPV level standard, Type 1 life jackets, drug consortium, the vessel's owner is on a drug consortium, and I try to step it up. I would like the Coast Guard to change that rule, but it's not up to them, it's up to Congress.
Maybe I misunderstood what the Coast Guard told me, because I thought, yeah, come on back up, shoot, the more the merrier, because I'm just trying to get the little crayon picture in my brain to understand this. So he's got a bareboat charter. It's got a captain, but it doesn't really matter if it has a captain or not, right?
It does not.
Okay. And he is hiring it out for $100, $1,000, whatever he's hiring it out for. And he can take 12.
He can take 12 plus the charter, so 13.
Okay. So, but a commercial fishing vessel, charter fishing vessel can take how many?
It depends if they're inspected.
If they get a COI, they can take as many as it's rated for. If they don't have a COI.
If they don't have a COI, they can carry 6 as a UPV, or they can do a bareboat charter. I mean, many vessels operate, depending on the voyage and the group size, they can operate as a UPV on a particular day, and then the next day operate as a bareboat charter, just because they have a larger group, but then they have to put in the charter agreement in place, they have to give choice of captain, all that kind of stuff.
Well,
with a
now-
UPV, they don't have to do the choice of captain, they
Yeah.
can just assign a captain.
Now I'm even more confused, because if the fishing fleet can take 12 out and just say, hey, we're a bareboat charter and we got a captain on here, we're taking 12 people out today, what the heck are we trying to figure out?
I would say that's not always feasible for, and I don't necessarily want to speak on behalf of operators in general, but if you want to drive your own boat, right, you can't do that as a bareboat charter. So if you want to maintain control of your own vessel, you can only do 6, or you can get inspected and potentially do more. if that makes sense. So if you don't have like a pool of captains, you don't want to get
Right.
into the whole bareboat charter business, right? You
Okay.
just want to be a six-pack. It's just easier to do that for a lot of operators.
Okay, I agree with Kevin and Teresa. Nobody wants to get rid of the fishing fleet. That's kind of the heart and soul of this city, but we also want, some of these luxury, groups coming in to Destin and maybe buying houses or condos or boats or whatever they want to buy and eating in the restaurants. And I mean, that's what we've been trying to do for the last 20 years. And okay.
Sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You guys can have a seat. Appreciate it, guys. So the livery ordinance many years ago started in the Harbor CRA. It seemed like that's where all the ideas came from. My recommendation is the recommendation that I suggested earlier, that we send it to Harbor CRA, let them hash out some differences, and then I'd recommend Lieutenant Nealis attend that Harbor CRA meeting, anyone in the audience attend that meeting, and then have them come back and bring us more, I guess, either an item for discussion or ideas to potentially bring to the first reading for us to review. I'm not sure the best way to approach that. So.
Second. When did you propose that would be?
I don't know when the next Harbor CRA meeting is.
Staff will schedule it. When?
Yeah, we'll schedule it and let everybody know. Yeah.
But I guess, did the original motion get a second? Or, I mean, so would you recommend that I re-say it with sending it to the Harbor CRA?
I would just, I'd send it to them and give them a lot of leeway.
So you're saying send the information to Ray and then have that idea be brought back from the Harbor CRA? Is that right? Okay, I'm okay with that if everyone else is.
Yeah. One quick question. Do we also want the LPA to look at it as the experts for our codes?
If you would like to do that, yes.
Well, I mean, if we're going to make it an ordinance, I like all our.
Yeah, the livery ordinance is actually not in the LDC, but we can take it to LPA anyway.
No, that's fine if everybody's happy with the harbor. I don't want us to.
I'd like to stay with the harbor, and then it'll go to the LPA when we potentially do an ordinance change. That's my thoughts, not to delay the process.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
May I clarify something with Mr. Stevens? Your original can I read your original recommendations, and then adding to that is sending it to the Harbor CRA? Okay. You recommended, motion now, to adopt Okaloosa County Ordinance 22-8, Section 12-23-8.1, to adopt Okaloosa County Ordinance 22-8, Section 12-239.b, and I believe require an up-to-date FWC livery permit as part of paperwork that is submitted yearly. And then, in addition, send all that information to the Harbor CRA for their recommendation.
Well, that was the definition that was in the packet?
Definition in the packet? Okay.
I would make one obsermation. The Harbor to send direction to the Harbor CRA to adopt any ordinance is probably out of ordinary. What we need to do is send it to them to consider and draft. We don't tell them to adopt things since they are an advisory committee.
Agreed on that.
Okay, so we have a motion.
And then there was one more step of adding another step to the livery and charter BTR registration.
What was the last one?
To add another step to the livery and charter BTR registration. If you want, I can go into more detail of that if you want, but I said it earlier.
I'm fine with that. Let's send it all to them as you're recommending for them to take it, digest it, do all that. I'm good with that. Second.
All right, and do we have any discussion on the motion?
Yes, sir. Just one thing, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. I think sending it to those committees or those boards is a great idea. I don't know. Everybody needs to be there. You guys know, y'all know. The only people who know these concerns and questions, like Lieutenant Nealis, is y'all. Y'all go through it every day. So you need to be at these committee meetings. That's why I asked when it was. Like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but when Lieutenant Nealis came back to the microphone, that was the question that everybody wants to know is, what's the difference between a six-pack and a bareboat when it comes to how all this shakes out? So if let's say Captain Brandy she doesn't want to be a six-pack anymore, please. She doesn't want to be a six-pack anymore, and the law allows her to be a bareboat because she went and got her yacht boat classification because she has a beautiful boat. What's keeping her from taking 12 passengers to the DeSoto Canyon to go blue marlin fishing? You know what I mean? Like,
So under a bareboat charter, she couldn't take her own boat out, for one. So the difference.
Okay, real quick. Well, she knows other captains.
She knows other captains, right?
And the people who want to take her boat are taking one of her captains. So now her business is selling a 12-passenger, 24-hour.
Yes, that's allowable under a bareboat charter.
So y'all see the problem here? Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm just making sure everybody, I think this is one of the major concerns here, obviously. So,
And the
I don't want
Coast
to beat a
Guard-
dead horse, but that's where.
Well, it is. And the question is, does the Coast Guard view that as a violation of the moratorium on charter boat licenses in the federal zone?
I think that's more of a NOAA question in terms of the fishing.
Yeah, good answer. Yes, okay. All right, Mr. Stevens, we have a roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes?
Yes.
I vote yes.
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 Okay, 7-0, that one passes. Now we will move on.
Thank y'all for being, can we have a 5-minute?
And we'll take a 5-minute recess for those that need one.
That way y'all can go. You don't have to stay the
It makes sense to me because it's going to let a $2 million or $8 million yacht go out.
We got to round everybody back up.
Yeah. No, I know.
Okay, folks, we need to get back underway here. Okay, we've still got 2 to go, huh?
Where'd everybody go?
Tori, is Tori still with us?
Yeah, Tori, we're good to go.
Got a quorum, so.
Yep. Okay, we will proceed with, I think, the next item is consent agenda. Hopefully there won't be a
Motion to
great deal of
approve.
controversy.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the consent agenda? No discussion, let's have our roll call vote. Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
Mr. Bagby?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Mr. King?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, that one passes unanimously. City manager report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening, council members. Our first item this evening under the city manager is a request from staff to seek approval to transition from our timekeeping and payroll paper system to a digital format. Both the HR director and IT director are here to explain the details.
Yes, thank you, Council. You approved the timekeeping and payroll system at a previous meeting, and what we would like to do is also add the HR module that will allow Jamie's team to handle personnel actions and things like that online in the same system, and then also begin rental of 3 time clocks, 1 for Public Works and 2 for the Parks crews to be able to clock in, clock out. In the agenda item, we do have a mistake that Councilor Bagby pointed out. We apologize for that, but we were able to discuss with the finance director, and we do have the updated table of costs, which we'll enter into the record here, and I think it's on your in front of you also. Do you have any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, do we have any questions? So the additional cost for those modules is 71? Is that what it is? Am I reading that wrong?
What they've done here is it's 71 plus 483 because of the new accounting rules that she's trying to follow. They actually have to somehow amortize it as interest, which I don't understand. But, so it will be 76 or 75-ish, 76,432.
Very good. All right, we need a motion to go forward.
I'll move that the council approves the attached budget transfer and planned expenditures for the UKG system enhancements as presented, including the annual costs for the physical time clocks and the human resources module, to ensure the successful implementation and integration of these systems over the next 3 years.
I'll second.
Oh, I was just going to make a motion too. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously.
Yeah, we're bypassing it.
Item 4B, previously the council had directed staff to combine 2 separate contracts, one related to the intersection installment and Highway 98, and the other related to the study of the boardwalk under the bridge. Staff have worked with the consultant to combine the 2 contracts into one. The city engineer has got the details for us.
Good evening, council. Yeah, so we did combine the boardwalk under the bridge
contract that Baskerville had with the PD&E study that's also going to focus on the US 98 Stallman intersection. With those two studies, combining them, obviously there's some redundant tasks between the two. So that came back with about a $32,000 savings between combining the two. And then also we asked them to increase the scope of the boardwalk under the bridge project, because now we're looking at designing and permitting a seawall along the whole frontage of the One Harbor parcel that was recently purchased, and extending the boardwalk along the whole frontage of that parcel. So with that, there's also an additional scope of 66,000, somewhere in that range, yeah. The gas tax 2 money is being designated to cover that, I believe, from Crystal. And we do have Baskerville Donovan here to answer any specifics of the contract if you have any questions.
I move to approve Baskerville Donovan Inc. Contract and related internal budget transfer, and to direct city manager to issue a notice to proceed.
Oh, curveball, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes.
Yes.
I'll vote yes.
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 Thank you.
Item 4C, we are seeking council approval to proceed with a bid to secure landscaping and maintenance services for our medians and city grounds. The Public Works Director has got the details if you have any questions.
Do we have any staff that want to have anything to say?
Oh, yeah, sure. I was waiting for some questions, but after the first budget workshop the other day, went back and tweaked the RFB for median maintenance, adding some of the grounds areas that the Parks Department currently maintains. Councilor Schmidt identified a couple of inconsistencies that have been corrected, and I think we're ready to go. The Parks Director also wanted me to add 2 other zones, one being the Marlar Street parking lot and the other being the library property. So we'll get some quotes on maintaining those by a contractor as well. That's okay with the council.
Very much. Do we have a motion to put this out to contract bid?
I'll move that the city manager be authorized to advertise the attached RFB miscellaneous median maintenance services, and once a vendor is selected by the bid committee, to bring back the recommended vendor for approval.
Very good. Do we have a second? Second. All right, any discussion?
Yeah. Is Zone 13 Destin Memorial Cemetery, is that one of the ones that you're referring to that was Parks and we're now putting it to bid?
Parks does maintain the lower and upper lots of the cemetery. The Parks Director was interested in having that kind of contracted out. It is very kind of labor intensive due to the nature of the cemetery's layout.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
So I may have missed it, but one of the problems we said we had was inspection we'd get complaints. How did we address that in the RFB? Is there an inspection requirement and a time to cure? And if you don't have a time to cure, a fine on the company, or what's our plan here? Because I didn't see it in Exhibit A, but I may have missed it.
It's not in Exhibit A. It's under Section 9 of Weekly Progress Reports. The contractor will be required to send us a weekly report specifying the date, location, and all routine and non-routine services completed during the previous week. Reports shall include any issues and/or problems encountered during the previous week and activities scheduled for the current week. In addition, a monthly property inspection will be conducted jointly by a representative of the bidder and the destined point of contact, which at this point is myself.
Okay.
There was no consideration for like liquidated damages.
Okay, so you do a monthly inspection and you identify all these things, and the next month you go out and do a monthly inspection and they still haven't been addressed. What's our, there's got to be, and it may not be liquidated damages, it may be just a requirement that they complete them within 2 weeks or prior to the next inspection. You brought to us a problem, y'all identified a problem, which everybody up here I think agreed with, but we don't have a solution for that problem. We're going to do a monthly inspection, but we had the ability to do monthly inspections before. So how are we going to solve that and put it as part of the bid requirement that they understand that? I mean, there's got to be consequences if anybody got any ideas?
I'll work with the city attorney to figure out some consequences for that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, yeah, I'll support this with the understanding that at the next meeting, you'll bring us back the consequences, and before we send this out, that those consequences will be in this bid packet.
Just questions though.
Yeah.
Does that need to be in the bid pack, or does it just more of later when
Yeah,
the contract comes?
No, that would be part of your bid because I'm going to price my bid based on what you told me is in the bid packet. So if you're going to tell me you're going to charge me $50 for each uncorrected violation per month, okay, well now I'm just going to add 5% to my bid because I know there's going to be corrections need to be made. I believe I would make them, but I also need to protect my business and say, yeah, I probably need to bump up my bid just a little bit to make sure, because next thing I know, I'm going to be writing a check to the city of Destin for more than they're writing to me, and that's not a good business model.
Yeah, and I would agree with Mr. Bagby, and I have faith that city manager and city attorney can come up with something that's going to improve our situation now, because there are no consequences for not doing a good job. We will take a vote then if we have no other discussions. Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ms. King? I vote yes.
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 All right, that.
Item 4D is seeking approval from you for the FY25 budget calendar that we talked about during the budget workshop. Essentially, we're removing the proposed June 24th date and moving that up to July 15th, and also amending the millage rate adoption date to July 22nd.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Do we have any discussion on that? Mr. Stevens, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Guile? Yes. Mr. Bagby?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll vote yes.
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 Passes unanimously. City Manager, I see we have some informational items there.
We're getting through it now, aren't we?
Did you want to comment on the informational at all?
Unless there are questions.
No questions on those, anybody? Okay, Mr. Bagby?
Yeah, and I think the staff is going to bring back a corrected version, but on the Crystal Beach acquisition, we decided to not split, or whatever the term was in there, not do the swap, and so we're moving it forward, and we will see the next set of plans when?
TBD.
Any comments on that one at all?
We already had 30%, right? So we should be able to see 60% here.
I mean, we have to get with them. They have to do some redesign, so I need to reach out to them and get them going on that again.
Okay.
All right, announcements.
All right, before you turn it over to Tamara, I've got one. We're at a point now where we need to start having workshops on the LDC with the city council. We're preparing an agenda for you to look at it the next month, see whether you approve those dates. So that's something to look forward to.
Thank you.
Tamara?
Good evening. We wanted to make a nod toward the fact that Law Enforcement Appreciation was last week, and we want to thank the men and women who serve our community so well. And we have two gentlemen to my left that we're appreciative of, and I want to say a special thanks to Captain Fulgham. There's not a week that goes by that we don't have communication along with the city manager in terms of whether it's data or statistic or some piece of information that's very helpful for us to share with the community. So thank you guys. The SRS Visioning Workshop will be 2 days from now, Wednesday, May 22nd at 5:30 p.m. here in the Annex, and that will be to discuss the Destin City Center, and we're really hoping to get public participation out that, and we will be live streaming it, and folks will be able to watch that and offer some comments and input as well. American Legion Post 296 will host a Memorial Day ceremony on Monday, May 27th at 11 a.m. at the Destin Memorial Cemetery. And for those that have been, you know how beautiful of an experience it is. It's very important. There will be music, a ceremonial wreath laying, and a speech by a guest from Eglin Air Force Base. And last, the RFP for Clement Taylor renovations is ready and is being advertised this week with a due date for bids of June 27th.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, now we move to public hearings. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is ordinance number 2401 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending section 8.0100 of the Land Development Code, right-of-way protection, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, severability, and providing for an effective date. This is second reading. Noel?
Thank you, Kim. Good evening, council. As noted in from May 6th council meeting, this first ordinance is a recommendation to, or an approval to strike through the current language that's written in LDC section 8.01.00A3, right-of-way as it relates to construction parking and right-of-way protection for construction projects. That language is then being what's the word I want? Amended and being put into the Code of Ordinances due to the LDC rewrite currently, and we're just trying to touch that stone now while we're at it. So.
Thank you, and I believe this is
There are no changes since last time.
Okay, and we are in the public hearing, correct? Does anyone from the public like to speak on this issue tonight? It appears that we don't have an, do we have somebody coming in? No?
You got excited.
All right, it appears we have no public comment, and we will turn it over to the council. We have a motion.
I'll read it. Go ahead. I can't find it.
I move that the City Council adopt ordinance 24-01-LC on second reading.
Second.
Okay, do we have some discussion here? I have one question, since I don't see anybody on the board. The old ordinance, the one we're amending, did it allow you to use the right-of-way in construction?
It allows you to do actively, it allows you to park in the right-of-way only during active loading and unloading. Other
Okay.
than that, there's no parking in the right-of-way.
So this is actually an expansion of the use of the right-of-way during the construction period, is that correct?
Correct, because in the old language, there was, the language said there was no parking for loading and unloading in the right-of-way. And as we went through Public Works and Public Safety and LPA, it was noted that it's almost impossible to do loading and unloading of equipment or materials within someone's private property, if you will. So that's why we modified the language to say, providing you're actively loading and unloading, and obviously using proper FDOT safety devices, that you could do it within the right-of-way.
Yep, and the only comment would be the construction I've always done here. I've kept it on my private property other than to, matter of fact, I think the vehicles came in and unloaded and loaded. I'm not sure this is going to be one that is going to be nearly as well received as we think, but I'll vote for it until we get yelled at. Okay, so we have a motion. Any other discussion? All right, Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
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 I'll vote yes.
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 This is ordinance number 2402CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, creating Section 1821 of the Code of Ordinances, protection of public right-of-way during permitted construction activity, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Code of Ordinances, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is second reading. There are no changes to this ordinance, but it is a public hearing.
All right, at this point, anyone from the public that would like to comment? Once again, I don't see anyone, so we're looking for a motion.
I move that City Council adopt ordinance 24-02-CC on second reading.
Second.
All right. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? In that case, we will proceed with the vote. Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
I'll vote yes.
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 All right, that one passed. Now down to comments. I think, Mr. Stevens, you got your 2 hours. You got anything else you want to go over?
I got nothing else tonight.
Yeah, I just want to bring attention to Tarpon Beach. Can you give us an update on the process for that Tarpon Beach area? Ryan?
Yeah, it's in for permitting right now. We issued a correction report back to the county, and they have 30 days to make the revisions to the plans and get it back to us. There weren't major comments, so hopefully we can get it back pretty quickly, and we can get a permit issued and start construction.
Thank you, sir. And I want to reiterate something that was already mentioned. The visioning session is Wednesday, 5:30. So if you have any opinions on One Harbor Boulevard, that's where you show up and give your opinions.
I have a appointment to the Parks and Recs Committee. Joshua's out here. If anybody has any questions for him, I'll make a motion that we appoint him to Parks and Rec.
I'll second that.
Yes.
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 I will vote yes. Mr. King?
Yes.
Yes.
That one passes unanimously.
Okay, and then if we could get our update on the pickleball courts, please.
Yes, so we're taking pickleball to Parks and Rec Committee, the 90% on May 28th. And then we'll try to get it turned around and bring it to the June 3rd council meeting. And that's 90% plans. Spoke to Jenkins Engineering today, and they're going to plan on submitting for our internal permitting process today or this week. So it'll be in for permits while you're looking at the 90s. Then we plan on bringing it back through the committee and council once the permit's been approved for 100% sign off on everything, and also bring back the draft RFP for your consideration, and hopefully get that out on the street that same week after we bring the 100% back.
Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a member appointment, Autumn Wiedenhammer, for Parks and Recreation Committee. I'd like to make a nomination for her.
Second. All right, we have a nomination and a second. Any discussion? If not, we will vote. Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
I'll vote yes.
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 And I have nothing further. Thank you.
Councilmember King?
Just one thing, I would like to make a motion to appoint Mayor Captain Gary Jarvis to the LPA.
Second that.
All right, any comments? In that case, we'll vote. Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
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 Yes. Sure. My first is to make an appointment to Ms. Tammy Weidenhammer to the Public Works and Safety Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion. Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Yes.
King? I vote yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Unanimously passed.
Thank you. So, Mr. Gile just asked about tarpon. I know I missed 1 or 2 meetings recently, but I thought we were going to get the plans brought back to us. I think we were at 60% maybe 6-7 months ago or something like that. And now we're about to be starting construction.
I believe 90s came back to you, let me check. But we are bringing hundreds back for permit, because that's part of the permit requirement.
And then while you're looking, the Crystal Beach item that Mr. Bagby just brought up, we decided not to do a swap. Was there further direction, Kim or city manager, on that when we said we're not doing the swap? Was there anything else under the Crystal Beach properties that was supposed to happen, or?
As I recall, the city attorney reported and the council did not want to go forward with it.
So the decision we made that night was just we weren't going to do the swap. It just kind of ended there? Is that where it ended?
I thought, now I'm confused. This is my night of confusion.
I love it.
I thought Mr. Schmidt made a motion to go back one more time and see, and y'all went back one more time, and he said that his number was his number. And so it was contingent on going back one time, and y'all went, or going back, and y'all did go back. And so then that's how, then the contingency was gone. That's my memory of what happened that night, but I'm probably wrong too.
Well, if anyone wants us to revisit the swap, we'll be happy to, but I have not heard from them since that meeting. So for us, unless we hear otherwise from council, we are not having that.
No, I don't, I'm not ready to revisit the swap, but I guess what Mr. Bagby just said in the answer that Ryan gave was that he's gonna call the county or somebody and start the conversation again. Who are you gonna, who?
Well, they're the ones that are doing the design and engineering, so we're going to kick off the continuation of finishing the design with the current properties.
So then you would kick off, you would ask them to start going again with these properties?
Correct, and we have some tweaks to the original design that we have met less than 2 weeks ago with the county to discuss those tweaks, so need to move forward with that.
Okay. So if there was ever any, like, wishes or thoughts about selling one of those parcels, we would want to go down that road before we start redesigning?
Sooner rather than later, yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Did you find anything about the tarpon?
I think you're right. I found nothing. I don't know if it ever came.
So, like, to me, it's very concerning, and I have a very big issue with that. This beach stuff, for me personally, for many years, in case nobody's followed me, never really been thrilled about it. But now the fact that we're about to have permits and construction come back to us that we never even saw, as we were told we were going to see, I don't understand how that happens. Is that the county doing that, or is that our staff?
I'll take the fall. I just never brought it.
Okay. So we're not beyond a point of return or anything?
No. I mean, we've had our legislative sponsor involved, so there has been some council input.
Right. Is it possible to still have whatever plans we have? Can that be sent to council wherever we're at, the most recent?
Yeah, I have the most recent plans that are in for permit.
Okay, that'd be great if you don't mind. I'd love that. I'd also like to ask, can I please have sent to maybe me or all of us the grandfathered contract from the ice cream lady that they sent to the city attorney?
Mm-hmm. What about it?
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be
I thought you had a
fantastic.
copy, but we can send it out.
That would be fantastic.
That was several months ago. It's not recent.
Okay. Thank you. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, and I was up at the top and didn't call myself, but I just have a related question to the grandfather. Can you just give us not now, at the next meeting, just a brief explanation of how or if we regulate out-of-town people that come in and do the kind of things that we grandfathered her in on? Do we have no ability to regulate? Just, I'm going to give you time to contemplate and think, but if you would report back and tell us, your idea of where we're at.
We will include the grandfather packet, and we'll talk about what our code says.
Okay, and not just particularly to her. I know there are a lot of people that are vending in the right-of-ways, selling tools, doing lots of stuff. So I'm just curious about if and how we regulate people who are not based in Destin at all.
Well, if you're asking about BTRs, we don't require BTRs for people that do not
Don't
have a
in
brick and
Destin,
mortar business
exactly.
in the city. But if you're asking, of course, if somebody comes into the city generally and violates like something that applies to everybody, they could still be cited for it. For example, they might not be a resident, but if they violate a parking code, we can still give them a parking citation. And, the sheriff's office can still enforce their traffic laws. So I'm just saying that somebody coming in mobile vending still has to comply with some regulations. They just don't have to have a BTR for a brick and mortar.
Okay,
If that
thanks.
makes sense.
And the mayor had supporting the Oklahoma Transit Mobile On-Demand RFP. Is anybody going to
I
present
think
that?
we are waiting until June 3rd unless somebody's presenting for Mayor Wagner. Yeah, we'll
No,
wait till he's
that was
back.
my question.
I think he put it on there before he realized he had to attend the conference. I don't have anything. Thank you.